Welcome back, everybody, to Jocks of All Trades. I'm Kyle. I believe this is our first episode, our first recording for Good Evening Football. It's kind of a podcast we wanted to do, a show we wanted to do for a while, but life gets busy, so we haven't really completed our goal yet in getting these episodes out. But I guarantee the next couple of weeks, okay, I think I'm back. Like I was saying, once we get on a roll here with these shows on Good Evening Football, within the next couple of weeks, within the next couple of months, with draft season approaching quickly, we're gonna have a lot more content for you. So I'm excited to put that out there and get on a roll here and keep talking about what we love, and that's football. But this episode, I kind of wanted to primarily talk about the NFL playoffs, what's happened in the wild card round, divisional round, and then kind of look ahead to the championship and Super Bowl. Uh, and specifically, I wanted to talk about each team and their pursuit of the Super Bowl and their pursuit of the playoffs and their pursuit of um, you know what they need in the off season to complete their roster to get them back to the playoffs next year. Kind of where they went wrong, where they went right. So we're going to dive into all of that. And if you can see here for Facebook listeners, people that are watching this video on YouTube, I do have the scores pulled up here. So we're just going to kind of go down um, each one here in the wild card and talk about it and dive a little bit deeper into it. The Seahawks and 49ers played on Saturday. The 49ers whooped them 41-23. That was at San Fran. Purdy had 4 touchdowns. McCaffrey did well. And the Seahawks, I believe, were leading at halftime. Uh, and they performed valiantly, I would say, but just not enough firepower to overcome the 49ers. The Seahawks had a great run, especially with Geno Smith. And I don't think anybody thought Geno would do this with the Seahawks. I mean, he might get extended this offseason, whether it be 2 years, 3 years. I don't think it's going to be like a 6-year deal. I don't think they're going to put all their chips into that basket. Um, I don't think they're going to put all their eggs into that basket. But what I'll say is Geno Smith, um, you know, he's a baller. Incredibly accurate this year. He played within himself. He never got too high, never got too low. He was just a very consistent quarterback and leader for the Seahawks. Now, their direction moving forward, I would think if a quarterback is available for them this offseason in the draft, like a project type of quarterback, I could envision them selecting one of those guys and kind of grooming him, getting him ready for post Geno Seattle Seahawks. I think that's a possibility. But as where it stands right now, Geno is probably the quarterback for the next couple of years, unless something drastic happens. I mean, those things do happen. Massive trades. Seahawks got a lot of capital from Russell Wilson trade, so anything's possible for sure. But Geno is the guy moving forward for the next couple of years. But ultimately, I don't think this falls on Geno this game. The Seahawks defense was pretty atrocious this year. It was bad. Um, and good on them for getting weapons for Geno. Kenneth Walker played well. He's definitely up for Rookie of the Year. Had a great rookie year. We know DK, we know Tyler Lockett. They drafted Charles Cross in the first round last year. He performed very well for them. So they got some pieces off offense, no doubt, but their defense definitely needs a lot of help. A lot of help. I believe Jordan Brooks is hurt this year at linebacker, and he was one of their higher picks a few years ago. Um, but at least they got Tariq Woolen, They got Kobe Bryant, not that Kobe Bryant, the other Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati at corners. They did very, very well. Tariq Woolen was like a fifth or sixth round pick and outperformed his draft spot, no doubt. So like they have a lot of pieces moving forward and a lot of optimism and a lot of hope. And I think as a Seahawks fan, I would most definitely be excited and hopeful for the future because there's not many pieces on their team where you're like, oh, they're kind of on the downswing of their career. Maybe besides Tyler Lockett, you have a lot of young pieces, good pieces moving forward. So um, Seahawks, you performed well, just not. You don't have the firepower on defense to stop that 49ers team. Um, the next game, the Chargers and Jaguars. Jaguars, oof, they come back down from 27 and beat the Chargers. I didn't think that was going to happen at all. At all. I had no hope going forward that the Jags would come back and beat them. Because I just thought, wow. I mean, Lawrence threw 3 picks. He was like he was. It seemed like his confidence was wavering a little bit. It seemed like, like this is Trevor Lawrence. This is his career. Like number 1 overall pick, but chokes in the playoffs kind of thing. But it didn't. So good on him. And our podcast kind of called it earlier in the year and this past offseason that Doug Peterson was a great hire. He's so anti Urban Meyer in every way. So to see Dougie P, former Eagles legend, take the Jaguars to the playoffs. Yes, it was a crappy division, but who cares? They were 9-8. I mean, the NFC East a few years ago, I think there was like a 7-9 team or an 8-8 team that snuck in. You know, so good on the Jaguars for advancing. Um, Another team that has a lot of young firepower, ETN. Even Evan Ingram's still young. Somehow he did well for them this year. They could bring him back. Christian Kirk was a nice addition, maybe a little bit too overpaid, but nice addition. And then defense, we know what they have in Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen. They have a lot of young pieces on there too. And they went out and spent a ton in free agency. So most of those guys will be back. But for the Chargers, just a really, really bad week. Um, I'm kind of sick and tired of the Emmanuel Achos of the world and social media, football influencers, whatever you want to call them, saying that Justin Herbert is a social media quarterback, that he's trash, that he's not any good. It's just wrong. Justin Herbert is probably one of the best quarterbacks in the game. I have 100% confidence that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. Um, so for Emmanuel Acho and those guys just absolutely ragging on him every game, I've had it. Herbert's this game wasn't Herbert. I think it was. I know it was the offensive coordinator slash injuries slash Brandon Staley. I feel like when you have a guy like Herbert, you have to be aggressive. Like he can make so many things happen. You have to let him kind of be that aggressive gunslinger at times. Like to put up that many points, 27. They're up by 27, and you only score 3 the rest of the game. That's telling me you're not aggressive enough, and that's telling me you don't know who you have as your quarterback. You're not playing to his strengths. You have to trust him, and they don't trust him. And I don't think it's a Herbert problem. I think it's a Joe Lombardi problem. Their offensive coordinator, who they fired, thank God. Um, Injuries played a part. I mean, stupid Brandon Staley kept Mike Williams in the last regular season game of the year. And I believe Mike Williams was still banged up, So, like, there's some decisions that were made by front office, by coaches that just don't play to the Chargers' strengths. And I fully believe in Herbert the rest of the way. His career, like, if it keeps going this route with the Chargers, like they get in and then their coaches kind of hamper Herbert, he might get a lucrative contract offered by the Chargers, but long term, I don't know if he's going to stay there. The Chargers also had a really good quarterback not too many years ago, Philip Rivers, and I know he might be a little bit overrated to some of you, but he was a good enough quarterback for them to actually achieve something in the playoffs, and they never did either. I don't know if it's an organizational kind of thing, it's a coaching problem, but they need to get it figured out. They definitely have gotten Herbert some weapons with Eckler, and Everett played pretty well, Williams, Allen. However, Ingram's not like this elite tight end. Eckler is not this ground and pound type running back. He's good, but he's more of a scat back. Keenan Allen's getting up there, injury prone. Mike Williams a little bit injury prone, and they have injuries all over the offensive line. But I would say sooner rather than later, they need to figure out a better offense, a better game plan for Herbert to play to his strengths and to get him to play a little bit more aggressive and not always these short 5 to 10 yard routes, stick concepts, like very basic, stupid things. Herbert's way better than that, way beyond that. So, Jaguars, congratulations, but Chargers, you have some work to do. Specifically, getting people healthy, maybe getting him a better offensive coordinator, and getting another receiver probably for him. Next game, Sunday, with the Dolphins and the Bills. The Bills squeak it out over Skylar Thompson. I mean, if this wasn't your first indication that the Bills are kind of limping, it should have been. Going against the Dolphins, who don't even have Tua Tagovailoa, their offensive line is awful. It's really bad. And Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill played horribly. And the Bills squeaked it out. Like, good on the Bills for doing it, but this is a game that you should have won more handily. The Dolphins were definitely limping to the playoffs. Like, they didn't even have their star quarterback. They didn't have their backup Teddy Bridgewater. They had Skylar Thompson, and I'm happy for him. He played valiantly and played well. He stepped up when he needed to, but ultimately, this vaunted Buffalo Bills defense and MVP candidate Josh Allen both did not do what they needed to do. I mean, they won, yes, that's great, but ultimately, they didn't look good in the process, or as good as I think they should have. It's a divisional game. I get that. Like, they played the Bills twice already this year, but I don't think that gives you an excuse to only squeak out a win at home by 3. It didn't really sit well with me. I mean, I'm in the Erie area. I'm like in the middle of Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Buffalo, like all of those. Like, there's a lot of Bills fans around here. So I've kept up with the Bills, and after this win, you're just kind of like, this looks a little shady. You don't have the most confidence going forward. Dolphins, they have some problems. I mean, there were rumors that Mike McDaniel should be tossed. They got rid of their DC. Again, their O-line's pretty banged up, pretty bad. Their running back situation's not ideal. Tua Tagovailoa cannot stay healthy. It's probably the biggest problem. Their defense was just not up to par this year. They started off hot too, but again, I believe on this podcast we said everybody's talking about the Dolphins, but don't buy in yet. Why? Because they haven't proven anything in the last 5 years. They haven't. They didn't make the playoffs last year. I don't think, did they? If they did, I don't remember them doing anything. Tua, they weren't even sure if Tua was going to be the starter. Like, they weren't even sure how long he would be on the Dolphins. They might be looking for a Tom Brady type. Like, there were rumors, conversations in the offseason about Tua, Willie or Woney, and they go out and get Tyreek Hill. Great move. Don't get me wrong. He's an elite receiver, but I mean, if you can't do it with these two receivers, I don't know if you can do it with anyone. Some of the most dynamic, fast, quick, elusive receivers in the game. Probably the two of the top 5 at least, elusive and just downright nasty receivers in the game in terms of their speed and being able to stretch the field, and he couldn't really accomplish that goal. Yes, injuries were a big part, but Tua is a part of that conversation in his injuries. Like, he's a main proponent of the injury conversation. It's mostly circulating around him. He cannot stay healthy. Concussions are a massive issue, and they will continue to become more of an issue every time you get one, and every time your name's thrown out there as this. Is he great? Is he not? Is he the future? Like, concussions will always be a part of that conversation. So you need to factor that in. If I were the Dolphins, they need to factor that in. I would say they should do their homework on every type of free agent quarterback that's available. Should do their homework on every quarterback in the draft if they have a good enough pick. They should talk about it because longevity-wise, I don't know if he can hang around. And that's what you want in a future quarterback. That's what you want in your franchise quarterback is a guy who can hang around for the next 10 to 12 years. I don't know if he can do that. I don't know. I don't think he can. But beyond that, even if they put their trust in him, his offensive line is not helping him at all. Run game's atrocious. And for a young quarterback, for a guy that gets hurt a lot, you need to have those things to succeed. 100%. Like, I don't care that you have two elite receivers. Like, you might put up some gaudy numbers. You might put up some wins. You might even get to the playoffs, which they did, because, like, with those two receivers, you can accomplish quite a bit. But ultimately, to succeed year in and year out, like, you can't be banking on these big-time plays, but no consistency because you don't have no line to protect him and you don't have a run game. And they have a lot of things to figure out this offseason. Maybe halfway through this season, we were thinking, oh, like, they're on the up and up. Just a few more pieces in the offseason, and they'll be 100% right. But no, their defense not good enough. I would say secondary not good enough. Xavier Howard seemed like on the down low, and then, like we said, quarterback, offensive line, running game, big things to figure out. I believe in the coach. I think he's a good play designer. He seems like a cool guy. I think guys like playing for him, but GM needs to get it figured out. Coach needs to be on the same page because it could be a disaster sooner rather than later, especially with the injuries that Tua has had. The next game, the Giants and Vikings. Listen, we all said the Vikings were overachievers, a little bit overachievers and also a little bit overrated because we didn't expect the Vikings to go 13-4. We didn't. It's overachiever in that way. But then they had a negative point differential, I'm pretty sure, or it was close. It was close to even point differential, and you have 13 wins versus 4 losses, and you have like a 0 or a 1 point differential total in those 17 games. That's pretty bad. I think if anybody chose an upset out of this group, it definitely would have been the Giants over the Vikings, and we were right. Vikings, their defense, I've seen it from every Vikings fan possible. Ed Donatell needs to go. He did that, so that's good. But you also have to get players for them. I look at the Eagles, what they did. Their defense last year was really bad. People wanted to blame. I blame Jonathan Gannon, but they went out and got a few more pieces, really good pieces to help him, and their defense is good. Like, it's not just, their D coordinator sucks. It's part of the problem. It's a big problem, but it's not the only problem. So defense needs to be rectified this offseason for sure. I like Kirk at times. I like Dalvin Cook at times. You know what Jefferson can do. He's elite. Their offensive line, performed a lot better this year than in the years past, but that's not perfect. But Dalvin Cook's slowing down a little bit. Kirk Cousins, Kirk coupons in primetime, baby. Usually what he is. I like the addition of T.J. Hawkinson. I do. Adam Thielen, his wife said it might be his last game. So, like, they have a lot of things to figure out as well. Their defense needs an influx of talent, and maybe they're kind of questioning their quarterback situation. I know some Vikings fans are as well. They paid him a lot of money. He's not doing much. So that's also a big question this offseason for the Vikings is, do they want to stick with Kirk coupons? Do they want to upgrade? Do they want to start over? Or do they kind of ride it out and gather some more pieces on defense and jump in another year and go for broke? And that's a strategy. teams have that strategy. Like I have Kirk coupons for the next few years, and we think he can do enough with a better defense, with some better weapons, and get us a ring. They can have that argument internally, and they could be right, but I'm in the belief that that would probably be the wrong thing to do. I don't think Kirk can take them where they want to go. Kirk definitely cannot take them where they want to go with some aging weapons and a bad defense. Um, Giants, good job, but you get smacked in the next round. We'll talk about that in a bit. Ravens and Bengals. That was a great game. Uh, I guess if you like defense. Um, no Lamar, and I hate to bring up quarterback situation again, but like this is the biggest position in the game. Like you have to talk about it. Lamar Jackson, yet again, it's just nowhere to be found. I mean, injuries are again a big factor in these mobile quarterbacks, especially if you run a ton, especially if you take hits, especially like if you don't go down when you should. Like Lamar Jackson's running game is the crucial point of this offense. It's the centerpiece of this offense. It is Lamar Jackson running around, and it can work at times. But like when it doesn't work, what can you do? When you can't run the ball, what can you do? You have to pass it, and they have not gotten him the best guys. Like I like Mark Andrews, don't get me wrong, but honestly, I'd rather have Kittle or Goddard, maybe Hawkins. You know what I mean? Like there's other guys out there. He's a good tight end, but I don't think he's the cream of the crop. The receivers are atrocious. They had Deshaun Jackson playing for them, like 40-year-old Deshaun Jackson. You kidding me? He's not 40, but he's like 35. Like that's just not. No way. You can't. No, you can't do that. He can't be your number one, number two, or even number three. It's just bad management. Bad. Whoever your GM is, he's blanking. Uh, he's firing zeros right now, like firing blanks. Like he's not doing his job. He's not doing his job for Lamar Jackson, and his job is to get Lamar Jackson the proper weapons. They fired Greg Roman. That could be a start. You might need to reinvent the offense a little bit, or you need to trust Lamar Jackson to throw the ball downfield or in tight windows or over the middle. If you can't trust him to do that, then you might have to rethink things. So that's where the Ravens are at. Their defense definitely played a lot better down the stretch. I'll give them credit. Going out and getting Patrick Queen was great move. He definitely fits that Raven style of defense. He might be a Raven for life, you know. But Lamar Jackson is the question. Yet again, does he get franchise tagged? Do they surround him with weapons? Do they trade him? Like, there's a lot of pundits out there that believe Lamar could be on the block, and they'd get a ton for him. So they'll have to figure out what they want to do. But Ravens continually getting to the playoffs and not going anywhere is a bad sign. That's when you start to talk about these teams in a bad light. You're like, oh well, they got the playoffs, but they choked again. If you do that year in, year out, like questions will be had. They will be. They will be had all the time. If you can get some playoff wins here and there, like if you go to the conference championship one year, you lose. Next year you go to divisional and you lose. Year after that, you go back to the conference championship and you lose. Like at least you're progressing a little bit. You're getting some wins underneath your belt. You're just not quite there. But if you can never get to a big time game in the playoffs, if you can't win those games, like questions will be had always, without a doubt. It's just the nature of football, and the questions will be surrounding the quarterback and the quarterback situation. So you need to figure that out. If he's their guy, you give him all the money that he deserves to get because that's the going rate for quarterbacks. And if you do give that extension to him, then you need to surround him, find some finagling with that cap, and get him legitimate receiver, please. He's been he's needed it for a while. It's way overdue, way overdue. Last game that weekend, wild card weekend, was the Cowboys over the Buccaneers. Listen, Tom Brady's probably gone. I expect him to be gone this offseason. It seems like the 49ers are an option, or Miami, or I mean, he could retire too. I mean, I think he should retire. He should have retired last year. He probably would have kept his wife, you know. Sorry if that's mean. I'm sorry, but honestly, like he doesn't have to prove anything else. He's one of the best quarterbacks of all time, probably the GOAT. He doesn't need to prove anything else. But that Buccaneers team was horrid. They never should have made the playoffs. What an awful, awful team. That offense was absolutely pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. It was tough watching them. Horrible. Their defense is good, but it couldn't keep up. It couldn't keep up. If you're on short fields all the time, if you're on the field all the time, if your offense cannot sustain drives, your defense suffers. So the Buccaneers, again, quarterback situation. If they can't get Brady back this year, and if they can't sign a legitimate QB this offseason or draft one, they might be in the basement of the NFC. I'm calling it. You heard it here first. Cowboys, we'll talk about that in the next thing here, next divisional round. So the first game was the Jaguars and the Chiefs of the divisional round. Chiefs go ahead and win that. Congratulations to the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes injures his ankle. That looked a little iffy. It's Patrick Mahomes. He can do some magic. Don't get me wrong, but if he's limping a little bit next week against the Bengals, movement's a big part of his game. Scrambling around is a massive part of his game. He likes to move. He likes to, step up in the pocket. He likes to run around. He likes to dance. He likes to extend plays on the run. And if he can't do that, that's a big part of that offense. Because sometimes the play does not always work. Sometimes there's not someone open. Sometimes the defense just doubles or triples Travis Kelce. He's like, oh, crap, that's where I wanted to go with the football. Let me dance around for like 10 to 12 seconds and find someone else. And that's his game. He's great at it. But with that ankle, a little bit iffy. But Chiefs did well this game. Beyond that, Chad Henne came in, had them on a touchdown drive. So great job, Chad Henne. Shout out to Brad. Anything is possible. But Jaguars just didn't do quite enough. You would think with a hobbled Mahomes, they could overcome that and win. It's pretty bad. I know the Chiefs are much more than just Patrick Mahomes, but you have a shot against the Chiefs. This is a really good shot you have because you're kind of on a roll. You're playing with fire. Like Lawrence is looking good. Had that amazing comeback win. A lot of hope for the Jaguars, Dougie P, but you couldn't get the job done. It's not the end of the world. Don't get me wrong. And there's not many things in the offseason that they need to flip. Just need to progress. Keep going, getting better, adding pieces. I think they'll be back in the thick of things next year. The Chiefs going forward against the Bengals. I'll talk about that in a bit, but good win for the Chiefs. Every playoff win is a good win. Next game, Giants and Eagles. Eagles smashed the Giants 38-7. This was never a contest. Danny Jones, listen, I understand a little bit of the hype. The Giants haven't had a good quarterback in a while, and I understand he's really good on the run. He got him to 9 wins this year. I understand all of that, and I understand for the Giants, they haven't really done anything relevant in a while, so the first taste of success here is it's an overreaction. That's what it is. If you look at the facts, they have Danny Jones, Saquon Barkley, and not much else. Granted, Andrew Thomas at left tackle, he had, all-pro type of year. Evan Neal kind of came along, but, still a little iffy on that right tackle position. Maybe he'll get better. But truly, it was Danny Dimes, Danny Pennies, Saquon, and Andrew Thomas. So it wasn't that much to work with. The receivers, they made some nice plays every once in a while, but Isaiah Hodgins, he can't be the guy. Not yet. He's young. He was undrafted, I think, or a late draft pick. He's not ready to be that number one guy. And their defense, they have a lot of studs on that defense, I think. They have a pretty good defensive line with Dexter Lawrence, All-Pro, Leonard Williams. Thibodeau played good down the stretch, and Ojulari's good. Adoree Jackson had a pretty good year for them at corner. Julian Love's not bad at safety. McKinney came back at safety. They have some pieces, no doubt. But there's still a lot of holes on this team, a lot of question marks on this team. They want to pay Danny and Saquon the big bucks. you can do that, like if that's your strategy going forward. But like you have to hit on everything else for them to be successful. Like I don't think Daniel Jones is the type of guy to do more with less. Now he had a lot less this year. I understand that. He didn't really have much, but I think truly you need to surround him with as many weapons as you can, have an elite offensive line. I don't see him becoming that guy that can just overtake a game. I don't see that yet. Um, it could be there, and you would be 100% right if you're saying he's never had elite weapons that some of these quarterbacks have had. You're right, but like the eye test, that's just what I see. That's what a lot of people see, but ultimately it's the Giants organization that has to decide that. Um, Man, yeah, he didn't do anything this game. Pressure in his face. He's he got scared. He read the defense wrong, threw a pick, fumbled. Like he just big time games too. He performed pretty poorly this year. So the Giants, people said, "Oh, they're hot, they're on fire," but in reality, they really weren't. Um, they made the playoffs. That was good. That is a good. That's a great first year for Brian Dable. Like you should be happy. But like the questions aren't answered though. You didn't come to the playoffs and be like, oh, well, we found our franchise quarterback. I Do you believe that? I don't. I don't yet. So that's a big question they have to answer, and then they just have to keep hitting on linemen, offensive linemen. Need to get some receivers out there. So those are just some questions this offseason for the Giants. Um, Eagles just dominant. Um, Offensive line, move people out of the way. Run game, Hurst looks fine. Um, Made all the right reads, didn't make any mistakes. Ran the ball okay, passed the ball pretty well. Defense, dominant. Defensive line, corners, balled out. Like, just no contest for them. Just an absolute insane beatdown of the Giants at home. Next game, Bengals and Bills. Yeah, this is just tough to watch. Just tough to watch as someone who's followed the Bills a lot more this year. I followed them more intently than some years, and just it's sad. I mean, there's no doubt um, Allen's one of the best quarterbacks in the game, and their defense with Leslie Frazier as their DC, you know, they were being talked about as like one of the best defenses in the league, and just both of them just didn't really come up to par. They didn't do as well as they needed to. You could blame that all on Josh Allen if you wanted. His performance, I'm inclined to believe it's a little bit his fault. He was way too reckless with the ball this year, for sure. He turned the ball over way too many times this year. But he kind of operates that whole offense himself, and they need to get away from that. You can be the centerpiece of an offense, but you can't be the whole offense. Like Aaron Rodgers is mostly the whole offense in his good years. Tom Brady is is the centerpiece of his offense most years. Like he's the guy, but he can't do everything. Like Tom Brady likes to hand the ball off. Aaron Rodgers likes to give it to Devontae Adams when he had him. Let him do his thing. Jalen Hurts likes to give it to AJ Brown and let him run around and score a 50-yard touchdown on a slant. Like the centerpiece of the offense are these quarterbacks, but they can't be the entirety of this offense. And Josh Allen, too many times, has to put the whole freaking offense on his back and carry it, and it's just not. Can't do it. It's gonna wear you down. They need to get a running game. They need to get a better offensive line, and they need to find a receiver number 2. Maybe even a tight end. Knox is good, but I don't think he's great. They need to find those things because most other teams that get this far have a majority of those things, or just an incredibly elite defense, which Bills did not have at the end of the day. Bengals, they do it again. I coming into this game, I thought, oh my gosh, the Bengals offensive line is so beat up, they're gonna get smacked. They didn't. Wow. I mean, I thought the Bills D line would eat them up, and they didn't at all. The Bills defensive line didn't get anywhere close to Burrow, did not stop the running game at all. The Bengals had a good time running the ball. Burrow got the ball off quick, had a lot of success with the quick game, success downfield with Jamar Chase and Hayden Hurst and all those guys. He's got a bevy of weapons there, but very surprised that the Bengals could orchestrate this and do it so well and just have that full confidence that they were going to run the ball and they were going to stick to their game plan, even with these backup offensive linemen. Because I was expecting a Joe Burrow beatdown, but I was wrong. It's the NFL week to week. Don't get me wrong. It's there's ebbs and flows. There's bad matchups, but I really thought this was a good matchup for the Bills with their D line versus the Bengals O line, and it did not come to fruition. So, congratulations, Bengals. That was a heck of a win. Their defense is playing a lot better, and they got some really good pass rushers down there. D tackle DJ Reader is very underrated. He's a very good defensive tackle. Their linebackers are good. Their safeties are good. They're very good up the middle. I think their corners are a little bit suspect, but I think they're good pretty much everywhere else in that defense. They might not have the most depth, but those guys can stay healthy. I think the Bengals could beat the Chiefs next week. I really do. So Burrow's, might be Tom Brady in the playoffs, man. I don't know. We'll see. But he's definitely impressing me. The leader in Bengals playoffs win already for quarterbacks. He is the leader. He's only played 2-3 years. So very impressive by Joe Burrow. He's already the best Bengals quarterback in history, probably. So, very, very, very impressive. Next game, 49ers barely beat the Cowboys. That was a very ugly game. I thought it was going to be more exciting, but the Cowboys defense they smacked Purdy a little bit. He didn't look like he did. I mean, he handled it well. He didn't turn the ball over, but he looked a little rattled. But Dak Prescott looked even more rattled. And if you're looking more rattled than Brock Purdy in your 7th year, that's iffy, man. That's iffy. First overall pick versus Brock Purdy in the same year. Yeah, you're like, okay, that's not ideal, but he's only in his first year, or he's only in his 2nd year. Like, he's new to the playoffs. Dak Prescott isn't new to the playoffs. He's not new to big time games. So to throw 2 picks like that and ultimately only score 12, not great. Now, Tony Pollard going down, he's a big part of their offense. He's a very big part, and I think they hope they can keep him this next year. But still no excuse. People talked about the last half of the season with a Dak-led offense. This offense was elite. Didn't do it. Didn't do it in the playoffs against the 49ers. So they have some questions too. They have to pay a lot of guys. They might want a receiver number 2. Tyron Smith isn't getting any younger. I think they'll still be a good team next year. Don't get me wrong, but if Jerry Jones continues to see this, which he kind of saw this the last 25 years, but usually the Cowboys do a big shakeup every once in a while, a head coach or something, and make you believe in them again. But we'll see. I don't think anything big is going to happen, but it probably should, but I don't think it will. So we'll probably see it in the playoffs next year and choke again. So 49ers, let's move on to the next round here. 49ers versus the Eagles. We're going to look ahead. 3 o'clock on Sunday, NFC Championship game at the Link in Philadelphia. The line is about 2.5 in favor of Philly right now. I think that'll go down to probably 1.5, I would say. It's going to get closer during game time. Eagles are very good at home. Lost to the Commanders once this year, and they lost to the Saints, but the Saints was with Gardner Minshew. So they lost once to the Commanders, and that was their only loss this year. Recently in the playoffs, the defense has played very, very well at home. They've given up a total of, on average, like 10.2 points per game the last 3 or 4 games, I think. So They've performed very well at home. It's going to be a great game. The 49ers have a lot of elite players. Kittle, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, McCaffrey, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, um, Armstead, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw. Huffnega's not bad, too. He's an all-pro, actually. I mean, they are ripe with talent. But the big question is, and this isn't me, this isn't like, oh, this is how the Eagles are going to win. It's just a reality is Brock Purdy is Mr. Irrelevant on the road in the biggest game of his life. That's a big thing. Like, that is going to contribute a little bit to it. Now, could he rise to the occasion? He could, and he even might. He probably will, but like, that's still a massive game, a huge environment, sometimes a scary environment. We'll see how he does with that. Like, that is a question. He could answer the bell, perform well. We will see, but that is a big question. The big question for the Eagles, I would say, is the middle of their defense. I think their D line's good. I think their corners are really good. Safety plays average. And even though Edwards has been good this year, like, I still think the crux of the 49ers offense is middle of the field with Debo on crossing routes, with Brandon Ayuk on screens, with Kittle in the middle of the field, McCaffrey on linebackers. I mean, he's a mismatch, So I think they're going to take advantage of that a little bit. But if the Eagles' defensive line can get after Brock Purdy in his face, like, that'll make it a little bit more even. So I think it's going to be a very, very good game. I'm not going to give a score prediction. Why would I? That's stupid. I'm going to always choose the Eagles. But the 49ers definitely have a good chance to win this game. Like, non-bias. They have a good shot. Bengals and Chiefs. The Bengals have beat them the last 3 times, I believe. So it's a big game for the Bengals and the Chiefs. Definitely know Mahomes wants to beat Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Definitely. But it's going to be tough. Again, we talked about his ankle. I mean, that Bengals defensive line it's nasty. It can get after you. It can pressure you. Reader can get in your face, make you do some stupid things. And if he can't move around a little bit, it's going to be tough for the Chiefs to do anything. Because if their play breaks down, and again, that's where Mahomes is at his best. If it breaks down, he can't run around. It's a tough game plan. Burrow's just been so good in the playoffs, like, you can't go wrong with him. I think, again, this will be a good game too. I don't know about the score prediction, but I think the Chiefs will win. I can't really count out Patrick Mahomes. I never can. He's just one of those guys you can't count out. But Bengals could easily win. If had their number, they could have their number again. But these 2 games, very, very excited for. I think there'll be good football on Sunday. And that's 3:00. The Eagles and the 49ers. It's at the Link at Philadelphia. And then the Bengals and the Chiefs. That is at Arrowhead Stadium. The line for that game is Cincinnati, a 1-point favorite. Oof. So, and the other one's 2.5 favorite. So both should be close games, I would think. Very competitive football. Should be an exciting weekend. But hey, guys, that was pretty much it for this episode here. Just wanted to give you some insight on the games ahead and some reactions to the playoffs the last couple weeks. So if you watched, thank you for watching. If you're listening, thank you for listening. We hope to have more of these good evening football episodes, some more content for you. So I appreciate all of you, and have a good night, guys.